When you're making half rectangle triangles, it's slightly more complicated than when you are making half square triangles, because you need to think about the direction in which you would like your diagonal to work. So here you can see we have the diagonal coming top left to bottom right, and here we have the diagonal coming top right to bottom left. And what I've laid out on the screen in front of you is the way in which you should position your rectangles in order to achieve these versions. When looking to construct half rectangle triangles, you tend to start with rectangles which are a 2-to-1 ratio. The long edge is 2 times the bottom edge. So at the top here, I have got a black and a gold, just as I've got in my finished examples. And to make a diagonal that is going to go this way, we would position the rectangles like this. And if I just take the pin out for a moment and straighten them back up, if I want the diagonal to start in the top left, then what I need to do is move that point across to the top left by twisting it. Can you see that I move it across so that the diagonal, that point there, is top left, and the diagonally opposite point is bottom right. So that will make me 2 identical versions of this half rectangle triangle. Just pop the pin back in those for a moment. On this version over here, my line goes top right to bottom left. So with my 2 rectangles starting like so, I twist so that the diagonal of the top one is sitting top right to bottom left, like so. And I'll just put my pin back in there to hold them in place. So that's how you're going to work out how to position your rectangles. And then what you're going to do is draw a line down that diagonal on both of them, or whichever one you're working on, and then you stitch either side of that line, just like you would a half square triangle. So I'll just move those out of the way for the minute. So these are stitched, both of them, so I can now cut them and show you exactly what happens. So let's work, this was the first one. We wanted a diagonal going top left to bottom right, and if I cut this and open it out, you'll see that I now have a diagonal going top left to bottom right. So I'm going to give that a quick press. Like so. Top left to bottom right. And if I twist this one over, you'll see I've got an exact replica. So just popping that to one side, we'll look at this one. This is going from top right to bottom left. So I'll cut this one. And now you'll see, if I flip this one round, we have 2 half rectangle triangles that are going top right to bottom left. Okay, so we've made our half rectangle triangles, but now we need to trim them to size. And this can sometimes, again, be the slightly tricky bit, because on the finished half rectangle triangle, you've got an offset corner seam. So rather than the diagonal going all the way into the corner like it would for a half square triangle, it's a little bit offset. So for our Crowning Glory quilt, we need half rectangle triangles with an unfinished size of 2.5 by 4.5. So what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to give that one a really good press again. And I'm just going to zoom the camera in one way, like so. You need to find yourself a ruler which has a nice 1/4 inch mark for you to follow. And if you don't have that 1/4 inch mark on your ruler, I suggest that you just put it in place using some masking tape by following the lines that you've got on your ruler. And I now need to place my ruler so that that 1/4 inch point is sitting on top of the diagonal seam that I have created on my piece of patchwork. And I know that I want this finished piece to be 2.5 by 4.5, so I can either come down it, and you'll notice that my piece is getting shorter, or I can go as high up as possible, like for example here. I've still got my 1/4 inch mark on my diagonal, but now I've got the full width of the ruler, which is a 2.5 inch ruler, so I know I'm going to have my 2.5 width that I need on my unfinished final cut, and I can see that I've got 5 inches of length, so I can definitely cut it down to 4.5. So with my ruler positioned 1/4 inch on the diagonal, I'm just going to trim off that top edge like so, and I'm also just going to trim off that little bit on the side that I don't need. There we go. And now I know that I need 4.5 inches. So again, what I should be able to find, that is when I come turn my block around, put my ruler back on top, if I was just to place my ruler at 4.5 inches here, and it's 2.5 inches wide, I can see that my 1/4 inch point on my ruler is back on top of that diagonal seam line. And so now I can just trim across, and I have a 4.5 by 2.5 inch block piece that I can put into my Crowning Glory quilt. And you'll notice that the diagonal is not perfectly sitting in that end or at this end, and that's intentional for when we actually put this into the bigger part of the block.